Act 1, Act 2. You know. But that one's sold. Okay, fine, great. Now we go into production. In which place now it's because the original sets were across town at another. It was I forget where, but they were originally set up in what was an old can't even call it a sound stage. It was done during the silent era. It was just a shooting stage, so there wasn't really soundproofed. Occasionally you'd hear noise from traffic, and also there was a hive of bees up in the rafters, and they would cause problems sometimes. But it was an ancient old thing, so they move everything back over to Melrose, Gower and Melrose, to the main lot, and that's where they set up production. Then stage 8 and 9. Now I think it's like stage 23 or something. It's up in the corner, of Paramount when they took over in '67 or '68 rather. Yeah. But that's where they set up there, and contrary to really popular, been up until fairly recent times when they finally released the numbers. It took it that long. Star Trek was not a low-rated show by any means. It usually, was at least a solid second place and sometimes won the night. So it actually did pretty good in the ratings. This was just a line that NBC kept throwing at. Oh, you're kind of iffy on the ratings. Because back then they didn't have to release them. Nobody really knew what the numbers were back then. You'd maybe get a position report, but, actual numbers were held very closely. It wasn't until fairly recent that we know what the numbers were. And they were actually pretty damn good. But they weren't about to admit it. Because, again, they didn't want to deal with Roddenberry any more than they had to. And preferably not at all. But they were stuck with him right there. And then the same pain-in-the-ass arguments came back when he tried to do a show about something, and they weren't happy about it. And the guy, they had their own studio guy on set. I mean, there is the theory that Herb Solo was really the network plant who was spying on him for the network. But the network had their own guy right there. And I'm forgetting, he was a black guy thing, so keep an eye for them. So a lot of things, like the idea that somebody was so offended they a black woman on the bridge. No, actually they were actively looking for that sort of thing. And it was around that same time that Diane Carroll had her own show. You got Julia. But it was because she played a nurse. It was still kind of nurturing stuff. You still had the thing of maids and stuff. So it was remarkable to have Nichelle Nichols there and as an officer on the bridge, and not like I said, Whoopi Goldberg, Mama, there's a black lady on TV and she ain't no maid. So it was still remarkable in that respect. But let's not overblow things. Kind of also with the first interracial kiss. It was first interracial kiss in scripted TV. There had been incidents before where, like, I think it was Joey Heatherton and Sammy Davis Jr. had a quick peck on the cheek and one thing, and so there had been interracial kisses before, but usually it's like a variety show and a spur of the moment thing, and actually then there were reactions from the South and other sectors where they would go, "I don't want you to man," next thing, and just the usual idiots. But I think there was a lot more of them back then. Thankfully, they're dying off. Let's thank God for this. But go through, and also not only was it not a low-rated show, it was also not a low-budget show. The budget wasn't as high as it needed to be for what they wanted to do, but it was not. It was one of the most expensive shows on television. It was the equivalent of about $1 million an episode in today's money. And again, because they're having to build everything from scratch. You can't just, you couldn't just go down to the Ace Hardware and pick up a transporter. You had to build that thing, and they didn't use jelly beans. There was somebody, talking out their butt out there. It was resin cast. One common thing was take an ice tray, sort of tilt it and do resin cast, so they get the kind of slanty things. But they would, cast their own buttons and stuff, nowadays you can run a Radio Shack and get a whole assortment of stuff. But back then they had to make their own stuff. And that's why, the budget, was stretched to the thing. They were raiding Mission Impossible's dumpsters all the damn time. Because they'd have some kind of strange, weird, the gadget thing, or the packing material the gadget came in. In fact, a banner day for the set decorator was, set decorators in the art department was when the studio got a big old shipment of IBM Selectric typewriters. And the thing is, what the typewriters came packed in these foam casting things. And they were cheap. They were, in fact, they were free, because the thing is, they come in, they take out, and they just toss the packing. Well, any kind of a manufactured form was gold for the Star Trek set, because they take it, spray paint it, stick it on the wall. Something looks like technical, you can't tell what it is, but hey, it looks weird. Let's go with it. And they just rated it, and then stuff like that. They would just feast on stuff like that. And in fact, with the episode Spock's Brain, in the control room where Spock's, on the back, you see these little panels with these little round things. Well, what those are lids from the commissary. Various sizes of coffee and soup tip lids, and just stuck on a painted, stuck on a piece of plexiglass. You're not going to focus on it. You're not even going to get close to it. So you're not going to know. But it looks technical. Hey, go with it. And they did stuff like that even through Next Generation too. So don't figure that they still did penny pinch stuff back then. Nowadays, because you have to. Because even though you really are spending $1 million an episode, you still got to cut corners here and there. But that's certainly going into first couple seasons, they're actually doing pretty well. So the letter writing campaigns, that was because the CBS, the NBC's filling them with heads full of crap. They're on the edge of cancellation any day now. You're doing okay, but just you need to bring those numbers up because we're getting closer. And actually, they know they're doing fine. So the letter writing campaign, while it did make an impact, it wasn't needed, really, except only in the fact that we really can't get rid of the show now. It is getting a lot of households, and if it goes by now, it's going to be noticed, so we can't just cancel it. But third season rolls around. Now they figure, okay, and again, by this time, they even had to do an on-air announcement that, okay, don't worry, Star Trek will be back in the fall. Their way of saying, please stop writing letters. And I've heard various different numbers. The official network view was 100,000 letters, which even then was a record-breaking number. No show at that point had generated more than 3,000. So 100,000 letters, that's still a big one. But other sources, and I think they may be counting just the ones that showed up at the network itself. Because when you're figuring everything going from everywhere else, it could easily have been over 1 million letters. Not everything hit New York. Some of it going to Burbank, and local affiliates got swamped with this stuff too. And probably some of them showed up at Paramount too, because by now Paramount's in charge. There was if Lucy had been able to hold on for another 6 months or so, they would not have had to sell out to Paramount. If they had just been able to hold out, but I think it was just the money crunch. And sad to say, Star Trek was a big part of that, in driving Desilu into the toilet. Because the show was expensive, and it wasn't bringing the immediate payback they were needing. Mission Impossible was pretty pricey too. That didn't help, and they were doing some hit shows. I mean, there had a lot of hit shows coming out of Desilu at that time. But the money crunch was on. Desilu was a cash poor studio. That's why they did this stuff in the first place. But if they'd been able to hold on, they would not have had to sell it to Paramount, and you might have been able to keep the quality level up. Because the thing is, when Paramount took over, suddenly it's no longer like, I think it was Jim Comack. It's like it was run by comedians back then, and show people, so like they knew you had the run of the lot, and you could go in and you're talking, free exchange of ideas, and it was really just hanging out, in the college dorm, and what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be great when I make it to the big time, and just shooting ideas off there, and it was a much more congenial atmosphere and a little more fun to create there, and you can kind of tell that with the first couple of seasons. This first season, talking about every show's first season of Star Trek hit the ground running, as far as quality and concept goes. But when Paramount comes in, actually it was Gulf Western, really. It's not Paramount. If Paramount had bought a Desilu, it still would have been fine. What happened was Gulf Western, which was really a sugar company, they weren't looking to make movies. They were looking to make money. And someone told, it was speculator craze, basically. It was always something. And at this point, it was, buying a movie studio. Because, you can make money, and then the thing is, they try to run it like the sugar company. They didn't understand why sometimes it takes 5, 10, 15 takes to get a scene in. Like, do it in 2. No, it doesn't work that way. Now, Paramount, because they bought Paramount and Desilu, they were literally next door to each other. There's a fence separating the two. Bought the two studios, smashed them together, and suddenly it's no longer Paramount Pictures and Desilu Studios. It's now Paramount Studios, squashed together, tear down the fence. The Paramount side, they were through this kind of thing before, so they were able to defend themselves pretty well when the bean counters from Gulf Western came in, wondering what's going on. Desilu, not so much, so they had to cave a few things. And if you thought the budget crunch was bad before, they really went nuts now. Because some twit from Gulf Western to come in wondering, why they're taking 15 takes to get this scene of Spock just saying no or whatever. And that's why the look of the third season is totally different. And also, Roddenberry tried to, okay, look, I know we're doing well enough. You're not telling us numbers, but I know we want a Monday night time slot. Early in the night. And they were about to do it. They were just about, okay, yeah, we'll give it to you Monday nights at 7, all right. Thing is, Laugh-In had just come on, and they liked dealing with George Slaughter a lot better than they liked dealing with Gene Roddenberry. And, of course, Laugh-In's bringing in the numbers that they really like. So, the old classic, phone call, Gene, baby! He always worried when they called him baby. Gene, baby. Okay, no, what's going on now? We got a perfect slot for you, Fridays at 10. Even now known as the death slot. Because again, Laugh-In didn't want to move. Roddenberry wasn't going to make him, so Laugh-In stayed on at Mondays. Star Trek gets shuffled off to Friday nights, and the only card Roddenberry had to say, because he had promised if they brought it to Mondays, they were losing Gene Coon for various reasons. Some of them kind of sad, but he was taken off from the. So Roddenberry said if they get the Monday night, he will come in and personally line produce the show. How well that would have worked, who the hell knows? But such is life. They wouldn't budge, and so he played the only card he could play. He refused to. He would stick on as executive producer, but he would not line produce the show. He would not be the showrunner. And so they brought in Fred Freiberger, who actually they had talked to before when they were originally launching this show, but I think he was connected with, he was stuck with the Wild Wild West at the time. And so, so third season rolls around, Freiberger's available, and unfortunately, Freiberger's idea of how to do the show was totally different from what Gene Coon had, and also, the case of, what could be considered a bit of a screw job, because really, Bob Justman should have been given that job. By himself, not co-producer. No, he should have been the producer of that show, because he'd been with it from the very beginning. And he knew the show backwards and forwards. He has pretty creative ideas of his own. Yeah, he was the money guy, but he also, he knew his storyline. He knew how to break a script. So he should have been given that show right off the bat, without having to beg for it. And he wasn't going to beg for it. And because of the stuff they started losing their staff. They started bringing out other people who didn't have a clue. Sound familiar? That's where we're at now. We're bringing in people who don't have a clue what the show's going on. The cast is now starting to, and early on, there's still a little enthusiasm there, but towards the middle part, it's starting to become obvious to everyone that nobody's having fun anymore. The scripts are starting to slide. Not all the blame to Freiberger, because Roddenberry's barely there anymore, so he's not getting a lot of support that way. The network is cutting the money there. They're coming into it. The Paramount is, so the budget was already kind of threadbare as it was, as big as it was still kind of barely getting there. Now they're having to do it even less. So they're really getting cheaper. The camera angles are, got a little creative with the camera angles to try and mask the fact that we have no money anymore. I mean, they save up for a few spectacular ones, like the Enterprise incident. They probably blew most of the budget on the ears alone, because the interior sets of the Romulan ship are clearly the Enterprise sets, just different lighting. They had also paid a lot of money for that Klingon model, which I think they originally wanted for the second season, but it didn't show up to the third. So when they showed it, we're going to show it all over the damn place. Even the Romulans now have it. So that's also partially because Hua Chang, the model maker that they went to quite a bit, then had to pay under the table to try and get around some union rules. He apparently wasn't paid adequately for the Romulan ship that he produced, so apparently he took it and smashed it. So that wasn't available anymore, and that's why whenever it did show up, it was stock footage from Balance of Terror. But mid-season, around the middle of the season, though, it's clear that the fun is gone, the rot is setting in, and that's when the numbers really do start to slide. And now it really is becoming a ratings disaster, and everyone's sort of checking their watch. Okay, Nimoy's already got Mission Impossible lined up, so when this thing, they finally pull the plug, okay, next week I'm going over, going next door to Mission Impossible, which is kind of sad in a way because CBS they'd already pulled the plug on Lost in Space because they'd launched a year earlier, so they got their 3 seasons in, and they were looking for something else, and they were ready to pick up Star Trek. They're also looking to pick up Batman too, but they only wanted Star Trek if Leonard Nimoy was still available. And unfortunately, he'd already signed with Mission Impossible. He was locked into that, so okay, well, never mind then. With Batman, they wanted, if the sets were still standing, unfortunately, they just bulldozed them the week before, so, oh, crap. And CBS has a history of this, of picking up, shows canceled by other networks and turning them, like, Jag was originally an NBC show. Ran for 1 season. The thing is, the producers of Jag were thinking A Few Good Men, whereas NBC was hoping Top Gun. Didn't work that way. CBS is more amenable, and I think if it had gone to CBS, I think maybe things might have worked out. They might have been a little more amenable to a time slot, which might have brought back Roddenberry and a few other people, bring back Dorothy Fontana and Bob Justman, and bring the band back together, and could have run for a few more years because they didn't mind long running shows. Hell, Gunsmoke was about 20 years. However, had that happened, we might not have had the quote-unquote Star Trek phenomenon. Because something happens when a show is cut off at the knees prematurely. Like something Matt Jarbo was talking about, when you pull the plug, it is a bit of a warning and a bit of shock to the system. Because even as horrible as the show was getting at that point, and it really wasn't that bad if you think about it. Even Spock's brain is miles above what we've been getting lately on Discovery. But we'll get into that later. But you wouldn't have had the fan reactions. Hey, we ain't done yet. And really, and especially, you wouldn't have had the rabbit thing ticking off in syndication because now, when it hit the afternoons and 4 in the afternoon here in Denver on Channel 4, again, I was 2.5 when the show premiered. I was there with my dad watching, apparently. But I had no conscious memory. I just knew it. It was a part of my back. I knew Star Trek. I knew Superman. I knew Batman. I knew, anyway. And so, in 1973, when they brought out the animated series, as kind of an apology, because when they pulled the plug on Star Trek, the whole thing about demographics is a little overblown. They knew who was watching. They had all this research. They didn't understand the importance of who was watching, though, because at the time they thought the big spenders and the one you wanted to attract was the moms. They controlled the money of the household, so you want to appeal to mom and grandma. And it wasn't until like 1970 when these guys came in and found, no, actually the big spending, the ones who spend the most, are these 18 to 34-year-old males. And again, you crunch the numbers, on this new formula here to see what's your number one show, what's the one you really be putting the emphasis on. And it came back, and that's when they get the thing of, guess what, you just canceled your number one show, Star Trek. Because no, it wasn't appealing to the moms in Peoria, but it was appealing to the 18 to 34, the college age and newly single males Those are the ones who were spending the most money. They're the ones who are watching Star Trek. You just screwed yourself. Congratulations. So, in a way, the animated series in 73 was kind of an apology. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll bring it back, but we'll do a cartoon this time over that. And yeah, there were some pretty idiotic ideas floating around. They wanted, yeah, your adult crew, but then you also wanted some kids along for that kid. And no, Roddenberry put his foot down on that one and said, no, we're bringing back the show. We're bringing back the show. We're not doing this smart aleck kid, like Little Kirk and Little Spot. This is going to be like the only difference is going to be animated. So the budget's no longer concerned. It costs as much to draw a rock as it does to draw, a 87,000 mile pod ship. So, and that's the one non-creative, one non-technical Emmy that show got was the Emmy for best children's show for in like 73, 74. It had been nominated all the time during the regular Emmys, but it never actually won. I think it got a few special awards for technical stuff, but that was the first one. It's like as the just best show type thing, was that Emmy for the cartoon. But it was a small victory. But there was still we want more live action stuff. The cartoon's cute, but we want more live action stuff. And so the campaigns keep going, and the letters never stop coming into Paramount, and like there's an episode of Tom Snyder tomorrow. It came on after the Tonight Show, and that kind of show we need more because it's kind of like what Charlie Rose does. But you sit down and there's no audience. You're just sitting there, just talking to the guy. And they had some of the cast members from because they're getting ready to do the movie at this point. It's like 77, 78. And Tom Snyder puts it to him that, look, let's say, NBC's not having the greatest year. Let's say, let's just put it back on the air. Let's get it and put it back. Would it work? And that kind of thing was going around. And that was around that period. It was like the mid-70s, after this, when the cartoon, it was doing great. It's the most literate show on television, and Saturday morning television. Like one reviewer, I think Variety says, like, putting a Mercedes in a soapbox derby. And we can go through the animated some because they had some pretty heavy concepts, like Magic's Omegas too. Yes, you're teaching your 9-year-olds and Saturday mornings about Satanism and paganism. Holy crap! You even got a pentagram right there. If any, I wonder if I think I remember watching and wondering if my mom walks in right now, I'm dead. It's like watching this thing. Because even then, you recognize this is not usual. This isn't Scooby-Doo. But around this time, though, as they start bouncing around the idea of bringing the show back, live action in some form. But also, and this is when you get the Phase 2, TV movie back, and then maybe B, but not so A budget level, but a little in there, and then it keeps escalating more and more. And also, as you're trying to get everyone signed up, Nimoy held out for a while. Partially because he wasn't available, because he was on Broadway doing stuff. But also because Paramount had been making buku bucks off of his face. Selling dolls and lunchboxes and t-shirts. And he wasn't getting a dime out of it. Heineken? The Heineken ad was the last straw. Because I don't know if you look it up on you, but there's this rather famous kind of a 3 or 4 panel thing of a picture of Spock. With the ears, though, are drooping down. But the kind of play he's taking a sip of a Heineken, the ears perk up, and it's fascinating. He didn't see it. He heard about it from, hey, you get anything out of this Heineken? What Heineken ad? And driving down buttons. Okay, that's it. That's when he calls a lawyer and suing. And that was the environment in which the negotiations for trying to get him back. And then at the time of it was Phase 2, new show, or Nimoy was having none of it. He was like, no, you pay me or you're not seeing Diddley Squat of me. And as the things float around, they're about ready to start actually rolling on the show, and then a little something called Star Wars comes out. And blows the wing up, And actually, I think it was around the time they were also thinking, of back to the idea of making a theatrical movie of this. But Star Wars comes out. When they Paramount figure, that's it. We've lost our shot at that. Screw it. And they're about ready to pull the plug on it. But then Close Encounters comes out around the same time and does just as well. This kind of blew their minds a bit, because that's a part that everyone credits Star Wars. They forget about Close Encounters coming on its heels and doing just as well. Because the thinking at that point was these fans that come out, they'll see the one movie and that's they're done. They shot their wad, they're done for the year. And never thought that they would go to see more than one film in a given period. So, okay, maybe we haven't lost this. Okay, yeah. So, I think it was Michael Eisner in charge of Paramount at the time. They're flailing around for an idea, what can we do for a Star Trek movie? And you got the pilot script, In Thy Image, which was going to be a 2-hour pilot. But 2 hour in the sense of you also got time for commercials. So really talking about an hour and a half, all told. But Eisner brought idea. Okay, that's our movie. And really, the Roddenberry and the rest of them thought they were still making a TV show at this point. What? Okay. So now we got to redo the sets because they're not set up to send it to scrutiny of a motion picture. They got to redo the model because the model wasn't. It was fine for TV, but for a movie, no, because you're going to get right in close there and look at you're going to see the seams and done the putty work. So they had to build a whole new model. And the whole fiasco with the special effects company, because the guy Robert Abel and Associates, they were fine for commercials, but they were a little ambitious and they tried to get it going for Doug Trumbull was originally asked for the effects, but because he was working on Paramount a lot of the time, but I think he stood in the direction of Robert Abel, but it wasn't working. After weeks and weeks, and they didn't produce one usable effect. In fact, the one that made it into the movie was the one with the probe on the bridge, and oh my god, that the thing goes by, and I don't know what the distortion there was intentional, but it didn't look good at all, and it's just trimmed down quite a bit in the director's cut. But when it's clear that it's not working out, Trumbull comes in at the last minute. Calls up Dexter, hey, we want some work. We need to get this stuff done, and we need it done now. So they had literally round the clock shooting effects sequences to get that thing done in time. But then, so you get the first movie, and just to be spiteful, they tack on the costs of the Phase 2 TV show. That's where you get the $44 million, because the movie itself really cost maybe $20. The rest of it's all the TV show stuff, which isn't fair because they use all the TV stuff in the movie, so for the most part. But that's where, kind of redemption, because now we got a big movie. It's the first time, and really at this point in about 10 years since we've seen these guys in action all together in uniform on the bridge. And it was the biggest hit of 1979. Problem is, it also cost a boatload, so the profit margin wasn't all that great. And then we start, getting the building of the franchise, because now they want a sequel. But, like NBC for them, they don't want to deal with Roddenberry and his temper tantrum. So then you bring in Harve Bennett. Harve Bennett, actually Harve Bennett and Gene Roddenberry locked horns way back in the day, because Harve was working for ABC or something, and they had a squabble over one of the pilots that Roddenberry was producing. And he actually threw Bennett off the set. So that kind of lingered for a while. And I'm sure it stuck in Roddenberry's craw when Harve Bennett was brought in to basically replace him and put him in charge of the movies. And Roddenberry was, given the exalted title of executive consultant, which means we pay him big bucks, but we don't have to listen to him. So, although once in a while he would come up with an idea that they would go with, but mostly it was just memos into the ether, which irritated Roddenberry no end. So. But the movies take off, and that is really the real birth of the franchise. Because now you got more product out there, and people are coming back, and the money's starting to roll in big time. Not that they're going to admit it to Roddenberry, because as far as they're telling him, the original show is still in debt. And that one persisted for a bunch of years until finally Bill Shatner joined in, because he, as the lead, he had a percentage of the show too. It was a small percent, maybe a few percent. and that was the sticking block when they were originally casting the part of Captain Kirk. Jack Lord he wanted 50% ownership of the show, which might be seen as a vote of confidence in the material, because he felt good enough that he wants a piece of this thing. But the thing is, when he asked that, there wasn't 50% to give around, because there's a breakdown, and like even Roddenberry only had like 25% ownership of the thing. It was his show. The studio had a big chunk. The network was getting a piece of it. And it was divvied up pretty well. So Shatner may have had 5% ownership, but after a bunch of years and all those royalties and syndication, they're racking up. And when Shatner's lawyer joined in, I think Shatner had a much better lawyer than Roddenberry did. Sorry. Then suddenly the books come open and the legendary Paramount accounting department is laid bare, and oh my God, now there's money. Suddenly Roddenberry doesn't have to hit the lecture circuit and conventions for pizza money. Now he actually can live and pay his bills and relax for a little bit. And I think also the rest of the cast is like, oh, here's your back royalties we've been holding on to for about 10 years. And so then, okay, everyone's happy now. The movies are doing good. Roddenberry's finally able to eat in peace. We don't have to worry about it. This is the last crust of bread in the house. He can send, Rod to school, in confidence that there'll be a house to come home to. And then we start talking about, okay, maybe it's time to bring the show back to television. As Nichelle Nichols put it so bluntly and so succinctly at StarCon that year in '87, you've won. You finally won. The show's coming back to TV. It went through a few permutations because they originally were not going to work with Roddenberry. And Roddenberry, frankly, didn't want to do it. He was in his 60s by that point. He was tired. He wanted to retire. But when you heard about some of the ideas they had, and it was going to be the old cadets in space, and they were going to have, Animal House on the Enterprise. Like, oh my God, no. You're going to kill it. And he made the mistake of talking on the phone to the studio. So, look, I could come up with better ideas than this. And, would you? Oh, shit. Now he's committed. Now he's got to come back to work. And there's a little bit of getting the band back together, getting Dorothy Fontana and Bob Justman and David Gerald and some of the other guys. Eddie Milkus was there to do. And starting to see, okay, let's see if we can do this again. But we're not going to be doing the original story. Let's put it like 70, 80 years afterwards so we can move forward and start, see where this world has led to us here after this. Advance things along. And take advantage of the fact that it's now 1986 or 7. We got better productions now. We don't need to create everything from scratch. And now it's like, and you're showing Beaver Trimble the set of the bridge. It's for what it cost just for this set, I could have delivered a season of the old show you would not believe. They really threw money at this thing because they knew by this time it's now the crown jewel of Paramount's properties. Because the syndication had gone nuts. The movies were doing great. They're starting to merchandise things a little bit more. So, now we got Star Trek The Next Generation. It was a rough one, because you're dealing with the guys who hadn't really been in the game for a while, and a different TV environment. First run syndication, the show was a hit in syndication anyway. And Barry Diller's idea of a Paramount network went nowhere. And that was part of the reason why the Phase 2 thing didn't take off, because that was going to be their fourth network. But when they didn't get enough stations signed up, there's no way they'd be able to turn right around. Okay, yeah, about that, because they were making a big deal of it, that this is going to be the new thing. They're going to take on the big three. They couldn't turn around and try and sell this back to NBC now. Oh, couldn't sell your network there, Barry? What a pity. You want how much for your show? Sorry, we can't do that. And that kind of lingered on there. So they figured, well, we'll just do first run syndication, which was not unheard of. It was done back in the day. A lot of hit shows back in there, like Sea Hunt and other things, they were first run syndication. They weren't network. But there were also cheesy stuff like Flipper and Gentle Ben. This was quite a big deal because this was the major budget thing from the studio going first run syndication. Because at this point, first run, you'd get cheesy little dramas like Saved by the Bell, but you'd also have stuff like, mostly it was game shows and talk shows that was first run in syndication. You didn't do hour-long dramas with major budgets. So they took a chance. And it paid off pretty well, even though the first season of Next Gen is considered probably the wonkiest of the whole bunch, because the writer's trying to figure things out, the actor's trying to figure out how to play these guys. And, of course, Roddenberry, by this point, is starting to lose it a bit. As it turns out, he's starting to develop water on the brain. And his drug use is taking its toll and boozing up, and so he's not all there at this point. Even that early, but he's starting to lose the grip a little bit. And also other factors, namely his blood-sucking lawyer, but in the years in between, he's kind of attracted a new circle of hangers-on. Chief among them, Susan Sackett, Richard Arnold, and Leonard Maeslish, the aforementioned blood-sucking lawyer. And I think we're going to leave it there, because we're already about an hour here. I think we're broken into 2 files now because of the recording. So we'll pick it up at the next gen with the blood-sucking lawyer. So, okay, catch you later.